Welcome again to today's webinar, Spring Cleaning, Declutter Your Life and Organize with ADHD. This is part of our monthly adult ADHD series, which is a spinoff of our Ask the Expert. So if you've attended some of those in the past, we welcome you back. If this is your first time, stay tuned for future topics as well. I'm here today with the Chesapeake Center's founder and center director, Dr. Kathleen Nadeau. And also our ADHD executive functioning and career coach, Bruce Hughes. Just going to do a little bit of a bio for each. So Dr. Nadeau is a world-renowned expert in ADHD. She founded the Chesapeake Center over 40 years ago with the vision to provide multidisciplinary, transformative care for individuals and families impacted by ADHD. She has been considered a thought leader in the field of ADHD and is most recently a pioneer in researching and writing about the needs of older adults diagnosed with ADHD potentially later in life. She has authored over a dozen books on ADHD, including ADD-friendly ways to organize your life, which serves as the basis for some of the strategies we'll share today. So welcome, Dr. Nadeau. And
Thank you. Thank
then
you.
we also have Bruce Hughes. So Bruce offers coaching for ADHD executive functioning and career development to mid-career and late diagnosed professionals with ADHD at the Chesapeake Center. He provides customized and culturally competent support for neurodivergent, BIPOC, and LGBTQ plus young adults and millennials. With over 20 years of experience in project management, organizational change management, and leadership development, Bruce offers tailored coaching for clients facing employment barriers due to their ADHD diagnosis. I couldn't think of two better people to talk to today about decluttering our life and mind with ADHD. So with that, I will turn it over to you both. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Julianne. And good afternoon or good morning to everyone, depending on where you are. In our first adult ADHD session, we looked at building habits. And in our second one, we looked at relationships with like friends, partners, and relationships with yourself. And I believe those are both on our YouTube channel now. And we thought for March one, since we're getting ready for spring, we'd focus on decluttering and organizing, which is a common issue for a lot of folks that I work with here at the center. Before joining the center, I purchased this book and it was so incredibly helpful. So I'm glad that I have a chance now to talk about it some. The opening of this book does such a good job of explaining what a typical ADHD life is like. And so in case you're not sure that you're in the right place, or if you're like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to benefit from this webinar, I want to read you a short excerpt, and you can raise your hand once I say something that sounds a lot like what you experience. We open with, for adults with ADHD, life feels overwhelming and chaotic. I can raise my hand already. It's often that our homes are cluttered, our laundry and dishes aren't done, there's unread newspapers and magazines. Our cars are sometimes mobile storage units. I'll share in mine, and I have bags that are supposed to go to Goodwill in the trunk right now that I've been driving along with. And some of us will even get storage units because we can't make a decision on what to keep. So we just decide, oh, we should keep it all. Decision making can be hard for us. And sometimes that means our default decision is just to keep everything, which means that the things that are really important, like our bills or things that we don't want to lose for work, we often can't find in time. So we spend extra time looking for things, which makes us late to some things, and some things we forget about altogether. A part of me doesn't hope that resonated with you, but I imagine that some of it did. And today we're going to talk about some strategies that can help with that. My first question, though, Dr. Nadeau, how did you nail the opening like that? When I first read this paragraph, I thought, I have so many things on this list that I could check off. You did such a good job of illustrating what the ADD life is like.
Well, I have a dual advantage. I mean, of course, I'm a psychologist and I'm the head of a center that specializes in ADHD, but I think my strongest credentials are that I have ADHD. Almost every female in my family has ADHD, and we have one guy who was the classic hyperactive, spitball throwing, knocking his desk over, I hate school little boy until he grew up and became a successful businessman. So I know ADHD from the inside out. And when I wrote this book, I contacted, you'll see the co-author is Judith Kohlberg. She is a professional organizer. And I had met her, I'd heard wonderful things about her, but I didn't know her. Well, let me tell you, Judith Kohlberg does not have ADHD. And I do. And we went through this hilarious and painful process where she said, well, why don't you just outline the challenge, because you in your own life with all your clients, and then I will write the solution. And we started off that way, and she'd write a solution, and I'd go, Judith, people with ADHD would hate that. They would never do that. And she would say, well, sometimes you just have to do what you need to do, whether you like it or not. And I said, yeah, but we have to work with the ADHD brain to make it more likely that life shouldn't just be one grim march doing what we ought to do, even though it makes us miserable. So we had this ongoing collaboration until we hit the sweet spot where we agreed on the solutions, and that's what produced this book.
Oh, thanks for that context. I didn't know that. Well, I'll tell you, as somebody with ADHD myself, I thought these were very effective tools. And today we're going to, if we have time, the goal is to focus on some things that can help us at home, maybe some things that can help us at work, and then some ways for us to declutter our mind. On here, I have three examples of some places that I might end up at the end of the day. And I'm curious for those of you on the call, if picture 1, 2, or 3 illustrates where you are normally at 5:30 p.m. In this first picture, I have a representative of someone in their kitchen thinking about how did I make such a big mess all day long? And thinking about how they're going to have to clean it up. In the middle here, thankfully, I don't have this space as much anymore. But this is a person at work who looks at his files everywhere and thinking, how on earth can I get through this? Or sometimes you might end up as picture number 3, where you're just overwhelmed and you're tired and you sit down and you like have to zone out. So for picture 1, 2, or 3, put in the chat where you normally end up at the end of the day. And we want to see if we can help you do a little bit better in that area.
Someone made a lovely comment that the first one is like, what am I making for dinner tonight? We've got 3s, 1s. You also mentioned car Bruce. I know we're not covering that today, but I immediately was like, oh my gosh. Some 2s. We've got multiple, 1 and 2.
Okay.
3s and 1s. We've got a nice mix. You're
Okay.
in good company.
You're in the right place.
Yeah.
So here's what I just covered this. We'll start with talking about some of the executive functions that are involved, but I promise not to make this a heady discussion. But you can always talk to me about heady discussions if you want, because I love talking about what's happening in the brain. But then we'll get into some strategies and tips for you. And again, if we have time at the end, we'll have some questions, but we hope to take some of your questions beginning right now. In thinking about executive functions, I thought, what's a way to make this relevant to this topic of decluttering? And if we're coming from a place of already feeling overwhelmed, I thought, well, it's hard to get started sometimes. It's hard to stay focused, and it can be hard to actually finish or to know when we're done. And so I picked out some executive functions that tie directly into those questions. Let me know by raising your hands or giving a thumbs up if this is true for you. And this first one, I know I need to clean, but I just can't seem to get started. You know, In preparing for this, I forgot where I saw this described, that the neurotypical brain, when they have something that they need to do, especially something like cleaning or organizing or planning, they have maybe a small urge to start. So they're like, oh, I should probably get started on this. The ADHD brain, however, let me move my hands in the frame, feels resistance to get started. And you're thinking, whoa, we're already at a deficit for just feeling like we want to do the thing. Dr. Nadeau, can you talk about that feeling and like maybe where it comes from and some suggestions on how we can get over it?
Well, sure. ADHD brains have been described as interest-driven brains. And so this may sound absurd, but the more you can make it feel doable, interesting, entertaining, fun, the more you're likely to do it. I'll give you an example from when our kids were teenagers, and they were, like most teenagers, very messy and dropped shoes and backpacks and jackets and cups and saucers everywhere. And so I said, okay, well, here's the deal. I'm tired of cleaning up after you guys, and you're all big and grown up now. So, and I don't like living in a messy house. I'm going to come through with a big green garbage bag about 9:30 in the evening, and everything that is where it doesn't belong goes in that garbage bag. I don't care if it's your algebra book, your favorite sweater, the cup you left on the coffee table, in the garbage bag, and you will find the garbage bag in the garage if you're looking for something. And we just made it into this silly game of, oh my God, she's coming quick. I need to get my stuff up to my room or back into my backpack because, you know, the Grim Reaper was coming with a green garbage bag. I remember a story a guy told me about, he asked his son, they had dumped a bunch of firewood in the driveway, and the father was off doing errands and told his son, I want you to neatly stack all these, you know, pieces of logs beside the house before I get back. And he came back and was amazed. The big pile of chopped wood was gone. And he asked his son, how did this happen? And he said, well, I just invited my buddy from next door, and we pretended it was World War II, and we pretended this was ammunition, that we were rushing up to the front, you know, to support the guys on the front line. And we raced back and forth, just pretending that we were in this exciting, urgent. And so they neatly stacked all the ammo on the side of the house. So the more we can energize ourselves, some people use energizing music. And one of the things I always tell people is, if you just can't get started, you haven't made the task small enough. And I literally mean that. Like, if you're looking at your living room, can you just pick up that coffee cup and take it to the kitchen? Boom, you have completed that task. In other words, don't give yourself a task that feels so overwhelming you just sit on the couch and shake your head. And one of the tips I talk about in the book is to think like a restaurant server. Because if you think about it, all evening long, a restaurant server is making a mess, cleaning it up, making a mess, cleaning it up. And so they don't wait until the whole restaurant is one gigantic mess and they go, oh, I'm tired and I can't clean up the restaurant. They're constantly doing it. And I think if we can think like restaurant servers, and that when we go through a room, just grab something, that jacket should be in the closet, just grab the jacket and hang it up. And don't give yourself the task of, I have to clean up the family room.
Those are great suggestions. And I think that helped to answer, you know, a lot of people had questions about like, how do you start when it's so overwhelming? And I remember that from the New Year, New Strategies, Bruce, you're like, make it stupidly easy, the first
Yeah.
step. Like, so
Yeah. So anytime that we can increase the urgency of the task, or for some people, it involves making it more fun. So Dr. Dill, your examples were what your family was experiencing was the sense of urgency, which
Uh-huh.
can drive us into action. And the other example was to like gamify it, to make it interesting. So yeah, I mean, I guess the key things to take away from this are to reduce make it easy to get started. So break it down until it feels like this doesn't even feel like the real first step. But if you think about it, everything that we finish only happens because of the small steps that we take along the way. So don't discount any energy to get it started. If you are like me and you enjoy watching YouTube or listening to podcasts, and you have the sense that like, oh, I should probably start cleaning, but you're not ready to start. Sometimes what I'll recommend is to set a timer on your watch or your phone for like maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes. It's starting to get out of the range that we maybe want. But you say at the end of this timer, I will start cleaning. What I find that happens for me sometimes is our brain will start to shift to the cleaning task as it gets closer to the time being run out. And I'm giving myself a little bit more time to do what I want to do before I have to do things that I need to do. And the other tip was to pair with dopamine. And Dr. Nadeau, you mentioned putting on some music. So this is a case where if you have a really good cleaning song or playlist, it can be helpful, something that you could sing along to while you're doing it. If there is a podcast or show that you can play in the background that you like don't need to focus on, it could be kind of tricky. So don't pick anything that's going to have you sit down on the couch. But pick something that can get you kind of excited to do the task. I kind of foreshadowed this, but another issue that we might run into with decluttering and cleaning is you're starting to clean and then you find something like a book or a toy or a shoe you were looking for, and you don't realize this until 30 minutes have gone by and you're like, oh, snap. I was supposed to be cleaning up. I've been reading this book for the past 30 minutes. Dr. Nadeau, do you have any suggestions on ways to avoid this? Oh, I found this thing and now I'm fully distracted.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things we can do is use it as a reward. I'm going to clean for the next 20 minutes. I mean, don't make it a long, drawn out task and give myself permission to sit down and read my high school yearbook that I just came across and haven't seen in 20 years, or whatever it is that we come across. So we need to put motivators out there. I mean, one of the ways I get myself on the treadmill is to put my laptop in front of the treadmill and let myself watch something I want to watch. I don't want to sit down on the couch because then I'm not getting my exercise in. But to make things as pleasant as possible. And the other thing I say is misery loves company. I mean, if you live with other people, everybody can get each other energized. We're all going to do this cleanup and then we'll do something fun. I really encourage families to, instead of ordering your children to go off and do your chore, which sounds like a grim assignment and everybody's kind of in an irritated mood, it's like, let's all get our chores done together and then we'll go out and do something fun as a reward.
I can't believe you said yearbook because that is exactly what got me the other day. So that is hilarious. Yeah, those are great tips.
Yeah, in addition to using it like a reward, which is a very good idea, is to create a later pile. So this is if you have, let's say, a basket, maybe a laundry basket around, and you realize as you were cleaning, this thing that you picked up is going to distract you. Like you can look at it, but maybe not right now. So put it aside with other things that you want to go through later. And this could be a good thing to do sort of passively while you are sitting down watching TV and you want to kind of take a look at what's in the basket and think about whether you want to keep it or not. It could also be helpful to have a friend or family member check in. So if you know you're going to start cleaning at 1, to have someone send you a text or FaceTime you even to show your progress at 1:15. Often ADHDers do not want to let other folks down. And so having that built-in accountability can help us.
You know, Bruce, do you know about FocusMate?
I do. Yes, yes, yes.
Focus Mate is a fabulous way to have an accountability partner. Years ago, I encountered a group of women at an ADHD conference that found each other and became each other's accountability partners just spontaneously. Like this was 20 or more years ago. And they said, we'll pick the dreaded task that we've been putting off for ages. We'll each do that. We'll get online together and say, I'm going to go clean out my refrigerator. And you stay online and come back and say, ugh, it's done. I got it done because you have the accountability and also the encouragement and the camaraderie of other people doing the dreaded task.
Yeah. Yeah, what Dr. Trudeau is explaining is this idea of body doubling, which can be especially helpful for tasks that are like not fun. I've done this with my clients sometimes, and with Focus Mate, you can do it for free for I think up to maybe 8 to 10 sessions. And essentially, what it is you log on and you could have someone from Austria or New York or Palm Springs on at the exact same time. They match you together. And what I often suggest is at the beginning of the session, you say, my goal is to complete X. Some people are going to be cleaning their bathroom. Other people are going to be submitting insurance reimbursements. So like stuff that's not very fun. But there's something about doing it like with someone else, even if they're doing something different, like just having them there and having the accountability of knowing, like, I need to be doing this. And the other person is modeling the skill of task endurance, of persistence, and you get to see what it looks like and experience it yourself.
Looks like we're getting some questions
Okay.
from the audience, and I saw something from a Susan. What do you do when? But I couldn't see the rest of her question.
So we have a few questions. The first one is actually about how do you enforce rewards or motivations on yourself? So you can say you're reading the book for 10 minutes will be the reward, but if it's just me, I can just ignore that decision. So,
Oh, what I would say is don't have the reward be some endlessly intriguing. I'll start watching my favorite, Netflix show after I clean for 20 minutes. The reward needs to be concrete and discrete, unless the task is going to last until we're off duty for the evening, then it's fine. I have to get the kitchen cleaned up and the mail sorted out before I sit on the couch and give myself some me time. No, you're absolutely right. And I say this for parents with kids. Don't get them engaged in an activity that you're having to pull them away from. You always want them to be moving toward the desired activity, not pulling them away from it. So you got to finish your homework and then you can have some screen time.
awesome. And then what do you do if your later pile overwhelms you?
So if the pile of things that would have distracted you put aside and now you are feeling overwhelmed with it. My
Or
first,
like even a later pile of like, I immediately thought of like paperwork that stacks up, and then you're overwhelmed by that.
And what you do is break it down. I detest, along with everyone else, surprise, surprise, I detest paperwork and filling out forms. And I'll often put something that I've been resisting doing on top of my laptop as I'm going to bed. This is what I'm going to do first thing in the morning. And it's only one thing. It's not a big stack of things that's going to go, ugh, I can't deal with that right now. So going back to if you can't get started, you haven't made it small enough. And it's amazing if you just take those things one at a time, don't look at the whole pile, but keep chipping away at it in doable bits. It'll start melting. You didn't create that pile all at once, and you don't have to disappear it all at once.
Two more quick questions, and then I don't know if you're going to get to this, so let me just ask these real
yeah,
quick.
let's do
But
it.
what do you do when you and your spouse are both ADHD, potentially undiagnosed? How does one person move forward alone? This was my question. I'm just kidding. But I'm very similar.
Okay, and I have an announcement to make, and this is related to my ADHD. I'm sitting at my dining room table without my charger. So I am going to go and move to a different location where I have a charger, and I'll be right back. Happy
Sounds
ADD.
good. Happy ADD. Bruce, what are your thoughts about doing it alone or, kind of being more of a team? Would you recommend like assigning tasks? It's funny because I think literally this is like me and my husband, and
Mm.
we had a discussion about this, and I found out that he loves to load the dishwasher, and I don't know why I hate it. Like I'd rather do the laundry. And so that's kind of, it was just interesting having a discussion and realizing that some people, even if, even in the chores, you rank what ones.
Yeah, I think that could be a part of it. I'm just thinking it's going to be really difficult if one person is trying to make the change to clean and the other doesn't, because there's a chance for some resentment to build up or for the progress that you made to be wiped out with the other person not being cognizant. I think, Julian, your idea of prioritizing the tasks or agreeing on the tasks that would benefit them the most if they were done on a regular basis, and then figuring out who could do what is one place to go. So maybe that could be a specific room. Maybe it is a hallway. I'm thinking like, how can we make this a more, to use Dr. Nadeau's term, concrete and discrete place to start? So if it's, maybe it's the living room, and maybe there's some shared rooms, some shared rules you can create around this is where we will put this when we are done, or we want to focus on having the room, I don't know, clean 4 out of 5 times a week. I think I might also say hire a professional if you can. If both of you have ADHD and it's hard for you to do the tasks that are the most important, if it's possible, maybe have someone come in and clean. I know I had to do this and I live alone, but I had to sacrifice my Uber Eats budget for getting someone to come clean. But it makes a big difference, right? When your place is clean and it's not cluttered. So those are some of my suggestions.
We have a few more questions, but I want to kind of get to this and then we'll continue
Okay.
the content and we'll
Yeah, I mean, this is the end of one section, and before we go into another one, I think we could definitely take some more questions. Now, this I'm kind of curious about because I've struggled with this at times. So let's say you've cleaned up like the whole kitchen or most of the living room or most of the bathroom, and you look around and you're like, there's still a little bit more that I think needs to be done. And sometimes the perfectionist side of us might say, oh, we need to sweep and dust and mop. Or the part of us that's avoiding this task can be like, this is mostly done. We can stop here. How do we know, Dr. Nadeau, when it's done? Like, how can we let ourselves know, oh, we've done a good job. We can stop now and do something different?
Well, I I think that we need to have a plan,
Mm.
and I think we need to I ADHD brains vacillate between I'm going to clean out the whole house and I'm going to sit down on the couch and not do a darn thing. I'm so sick of it. And to just have a plan to keep chipping away at it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with I know the kitchen isn't entirely clean, but I'm worn out and I've been working all day and I'm going to sit down for a while. But before I go to bed, I'm going to come back and finish cleaning up. And it'll feel much less daunting because it's probably only 10 more minutes of cleaning that you need to do.
Mm.
Going back to what you were talking about, Julianne, is I think it's absolutely perfect to really figure out who would rather do what, who is best suited to do what. And I think we all have pet peeves and things that we don't mind doing at all. And so, and that works on a family level too. In other words, I get I get really frustrated when those of us with ADHD get criticized for being the way we are, that we should just stop being that way. And the highly renowned psychologist Russell Barkley, who's an ADHD expert, calls those of us with ADHD low on conscientiousness. Like the good people in the world are conscientious and they do what they ought to do when they ought to do it. And so my feeling is that there are a lot of really fun, creative, stimulating, interesting things about having these ADHD brains. And that our goal in life is not to not be ADHD. Sometimes we may be married to someone that thinks we ought to not be ADHD anymore. Good luck with that. But I think we really need to work with ourselves rather than chastising ourselves. And so often we've got, I remember working with a woman whose mother was always in her head criticizing her and talking. Mm-hmm. And so I had her imagine her mother as this little gremlin sitting on her shoulder saying critical things in her ear, and I'd get her to flick her mother off her shoulder and say, "Stop it, mother," and flick her off and give herself permission to, this is what matters to me. And the fact of the matter is, nobody gets a perfect life. Nobody has a perfect house. People, I love the refrigerator sticker, a tidy house is a sign of a wasted life, because there are all kinds of other things that we can be doing if we're not home polishing the floor and cleaning the windows. So we get to decide what's important in life. And I think our task as people with ADHD is to figure out how we're getting in our own way. And very often, the way I get in my own way, and I think this is true for most of us, is we take on too much. That we think we ought to, that big old ought to, be able to read all these magazines, make all these phone calls, respond to all these emails, be the perfect parent, cook the perfect meal. And we really need to sit down and have a kind and reasonable talk with ourselves about what really matters the most. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to a woman, she was an amazing woman who was one of the first female firefighters in Fairfax County. And she had an exhausting job, and she'd come home and she was a single parent, and she was talking about cooking dinner and the kids were running around. And I said, seems to me the most important thing for you to do when you get home in the evening is hang out with your kids. And I don't care if you're all sitting down on the floor eating PB&Js, so that you can have more time together rather than frantically trying to cook a healthy meal. And we can't do everything perfectly. And to give ourselves permission to really think about what matters the most. And that's where I'm going to put my time and energy, and keep flicking those critics off of our shoulder.
I like that. I will just add one more suggestion for knowing when you're finished is to use a timer. I found that what I like to do is divide up my rooms. So I think of like bedroom, bathroom, living room, kitchen, and I'll set a timer for 5 minutes on my watch if I have 30 minutes. If I have the energy, sometimes you get energy at unexpected times. Maybe it's at like 7 in the morning because you were just picking up something, or it's like 7 at night because you were organizing something. And I'm like, oh man, I got energy to clean, 5 minutes. And I spend 5 minutes in each room. And like once the timer goes off, I move to the next room. And I have a rule that I stop, like whenever my timer goes off, I can stop the activity that I'm involved in. So I like don't stop making the bed. But once I'm done, I move to the next room. And 25 to 30 minutes, I find can sometimes make a really big difference. And it also helps me like the following day, Dr. Nadeau, you just mentioned this, like it's a lot easier then to finish. So I'm a huge fan of using timers as motivating factors. And it helps me realize like, oh, I only have to do this for 5 minutes. Proves if you just get started, you can make a lot of progress.
And you can stand to do almost anything for 5 minutes if you know
Yeah.
you get to stop at the end of it.
Um, so the goal here isn't, oh, I think it's like Dr. Doe wrote these almost. The goal is,
Like
I
the
swear I
perfect
did,
book,
because
yeah.
we're touching on all of the same topics. It's not to have a perfectly clean space. It's about having a system. I do want to, I have a question for you, Dr. Doe. When you mentioned like the server analogy about you're kind of always kind of picking up, there's something kind of sad about the thought of like always having to clean. Like it's like nobody told me as an adult cleaning would be this much of my time. So it kind of feels like God, I'm always cleaning up. Like um
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because I am not suggesting that we should be obsessed by cleaning up. What I'm suggesting is that we make our messes one thing at a time.
mm,
And if we pick things up one at a time, if I'm just walking through the dining room and realize I left my coffee cup, I'll just grab it and put it next to the sink in the kitchen because I'm going that way anyway. To sort of use your movement, use the fact I'm leaving this room now, just look around, what should I take out of this room? Because I brought it into this room. So it's really just they're
mm,
micro tasks,
mm,
but if we're in the habit of doing them, then the mountain kind of melts.
got you.
I
Uh,
also just want to comment on the energy burst. I find myself cleaning like that and just you get the burst of energy. Okay, now's the time I'm going to do all the laundry, get all the laundry out, and like you lose steam. And I think being intentional about like, maybe I can enjoy this by listening to music. Like I literally get so locked in that I don't put the enjoyable stuff
You got
on or, so I have takeaways is where I'm going with that.
Absolutely. And, sometimes I joke with parents that the way you describe adulthood, nobody would ever want to go there
mhm,
because adulthood is just one series of responsibilities after the next. And life doesn't have to be that way at all. It can feel that way if we've avoided doing 19 things, then there is this avalanche about to fall on our head. But if we can learn to just take care of things in bits and pieces, like the one form, I did that this morning. I had to call my bank about something that was the one thing I didn't deal with the rest of the stack. We just can chip away at it. And remember, this is the only life you get. And if we can find a way to enjoy every day, then we're way ahead of an awful lot of people.
mm.
People have been sharing some wonderful things. I just want to remind that I will be like compiling all of the recommendations, like the work of Oliver Berkman, who has a free newsletter, talking about some timer app, a book, auto pay for bills. We love it. Paper calendars. So, finding what works for you, but I'll be sure to share this stuff.
Did we have any other questions you wanted to take a second to respond to?
Yeah, I mean, some of them were about the perfectionism. So you definitely touched on that.
Okay.
One question to Bruce, how do you make yourself actually stop once the timer goes off?
About 75% of the time I stop, and the other 25% of the time I don't. So it's not something that I do perfectly. And if you're talking about the timer for cleaning, I will think back to, well, Bruce, what's the original goal? Like the goal is to clean up. And so if you are in the bedroom and it takes up all of your 30 minutes, like you're still cleaning. So I'll try to remind myself like there's a reason why I'm even using this tool or this strategy. And it's not to spend 5 minutes in each room, it's to trick myself into getting started. If the question has to do with like if if I'm like watching YouTube and I'm at the end of the 5 to 7 minute timer and I need to get up afterwards, that is also probably a 75-25% split. And if I start to have feelings of like guilt or shame, I will think back to when I had no timer. I would just watch YouTube all night and I wouldn't clean anything. Because I find that feeling of, oh man, I didn't do this thing and I should have. And somehow it ends up being like, I'm a bad human. Like that kind of guilt and shame I don't need and y'all don't need. So it's a matter of saying, I'm doing better, and maybe tomorrow I can actually obey the timer. But for today, I'm really interested in this video. And I acknowledge when things are on YouTube or where there's a fun show or something that you want to do, it's hard to stop. So I might want to flip around the order the following day. If there's something that I know I want to watch on YouTube, I use that as a reward. And I'm saying, I don't want to have to stop what I'm doing. Let me do the cleaning first, and then I can spend as much time on YouTube as I want.
Bruce, you got a question, and that is, what is the 80% rule?
Oh, 80. So this is somewhat subjective, but this is to get 80% done. And I think the easiest way to do it is to compare a before and after picture. So before you clean a room, you can take a picture. And if you're not a good measure of this, you could send it to someone else maybe. But at a certain point, so maybe 10, 15 minutes in, you look back at the room and you're like, oh, like this looks better than it did before. Like there's still a few things out of place. Maybe I didn't fluff the pillows. Like maybe these pictures are crooked, but like it looks better. You kind of have a sense when you look at a room and you're thinking, I don't know. Looks like some more could be done here. It's not about getting to the 80% directly. It's about not getting stuck with feeling like you have to do everything perfectly. So any level of better is better. Someone told me, and that's what I go by.
Bruce, I have something that I'd like to comment
Oh,
on.
come on.
You're talking about watching YouTube and going on social media and listening to podcasts. And I always ask people, if you could design the perfect life for yourself, would it be, I want to watch YouTube for 6 hours today? Would that be your most desired task? And the reason I bring that up is I think we use those things as avoidance of all the stuff around us that we don't want to do. And that's not our most treasured. Oh, at the end of my life, I watched all the YouTube I wanted. Fabulous life. And so I really encourage people to think, what is it you really do want to be doing with your time other than chores and paperwork? And to make those activities there and available. We tend to do with our ADD brains, we react to our environment. And so if I want to be painting, if I want to be reading a book, if I want to be calling a friend instead of going on YouTube, then I need to have reminders or patterns in my life. And I, as a psychologist working with my brain and the brains of all the people around me that get so easily distracted, I really try to build things into my daily life, positive things. And one of those is I call it sort of reach out and touch someone. That I'll either text message somebody, let's get together this weekend, or do you want to go for a walk later this afternoon, or make a phone call instead of a text message or an email. I mean, I'm sure all of you have read about the loneliness epidemic. And I think it's even worse for those of us with ADHD because we get locked into whatever is immediately in front of us. And what is usually immediately in front of us is a screen. Do we want to spend our life in front of a screen? And to counteract that, we need to put the things in front of us that we do want to be doing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And thank you for bringing that up. And I've tried that with a lot of success. I think I've shared, oh, I maybe haven't met this group yet. I play piano and my piano is always clean. Like that's something that I always just because I look at it all the time. But I found that I wouldn't leave the music out because I'm like, oh, the music is kind of like messing up the aesthetic and the pages are yellow because I play this so much. But I found that if I have the music out and like after one session, I have a post-it note and I'll like write where I left off. And I'll be like, oh, we need to do hand separate practice on this. And I slap it on the music, put it on the piano. Then when I walk by it on my way to the living room, I'm like, oh, it's like right here and it's out in the open. And the cover for the keys, I moved back, which I normally protect, but that way I could just sit down at any time and get ready to play. So for my folks who have instruments, I'll say, take the guitar out of the case and stand it up.
You
Or if there's something that you know you want to do, like open it to that page or set a reminder for yourself. One final tip before we move on. If there's somebody that you know you want to talk to, I don't know how this works for Androids, but I know on the iPhone, you can have a certain message that'll come up anytime you text someone if like you need to talk to them or if you want to remember to talk to them. So that's a way for you to kind of remind yourself of, oh, like I just picked up my phone and here it looks like I should be texting someone or reaching out to go for coffee or lunch. So thank you.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, we're having a lot of good discussion. Do we have any other questions before we move to decluttering the home?
Just again, some other wonderful tips like an app blocker. Someone told me about an app that basically it's like you grow a tree and it plants a real tree if you grow the tree. Do you know about that app? I need to look into it. But basically,
Forest.
you go, what is it?
Forest.
Forest. And can you explain it just like
Yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So just sorry, yeah. I'm like, yeah, the app.
Yeah.
So with Forest, you can build, it's really cool. You get to build like a whole forest, FOREST, of like trees and plants. And so you can I use the Pomodoro method with it where you can set a timer, let's say for 25, but you could also do it for an hour, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. And you get to choose which apps it blocks. So you're on the honor system there. I go ahead and block most of the apps except phone in case somebody has to call me. But at the end of the 25-minute window, it'll ask you how much time do you want for a break. And then you can scroll over and see like, oh, I like planted a tree or the tree has grown. There's another one where you can grow or you can like build a whole environment. I think it's called Habatica. I tried that one and didn't like it as much, but for the blocking apps, Forest is a fun one. There is another one called OneSec, ONESEC. And what it does is before you actually open an app, you'll have the option to either do an activity, so like take 5 deep breaths, or do 2 push-ups, or it'll ask you a question like, do you really need to go to this app right now? Or you can make you wait for 15 seconds before the app opens. And that was the one that got me. And I was like, oh, I'm not waiting 15 seconds for Instagram. I'll just keep doing what I was doing. So if you don't want to use Forest in 1 sec, that might be another option for you.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great recommendations. And I will share this with everybody. So
Okay, let's get into home. Let me go ahead to this because I do want to highlight this story out of the book. There is this isn't their real name, but we're introduced to Marge. And Marge has kind of the classic issue of, oh, well, let me go back here. This, what you call chaos, can't have anyone over syndrome. Or it might be, you can have people over, but there are certain rooms they can't go in. Or like, yeah, we just don't go in the basement. For Marge, like a lot of us, she felt like, oh, I don't have time to do the tasks that I need to do. part of the challenge is that Marge would go to bed around 1 or 2 every night because that's the time that she had for herself. But then she had to get up at around 7 to get to work on time, which didn't happen because she would snooze and get to work maybe around 9:30, be in a fog for like half the day because you're still kind of waking up, and then realize, oh, I don't have time to get all of my work done by 5 o'clock. So you bring your work home to finish. Now it's 8 o'clock in the evening. You're hungry. You look around, you see your place is cluttered. There are things that you thought you were going to do, like your laundry or your dishes, but you don't have the energy to do it because you didn't get enough sleep and now you're tired from your workday. So this cycle happens over and over again. And I thought, oh, this sounds a lot like somebody I know, but it might represent some folks who are also struggling with this. I know we don't have a ton of time left, and I realize this is a complex problem for Marge. But Dr. Nadeau, if anyone has a similar challenge in their life, where might you have them start to make some time to even declutter or to clean up?
Well, we've been talking about a lot of the tips all along, and that is we make clean up. I need to clean up my house into such an odious task that, of course, we keep avoiding it.
Mhm.
And so I think your 5 minute thing is a great way to start, because just starting with, well, at least I can do this for 5 minutes. And often we find that we can keep going and want to keep going once we've gotten started on something. And I think if we can give ourselves permission, okay, tonight I'm just going to do the laundry. I know the place is a mess. I know my kitchen is a mess, but I'm going to get my laundry done and make goals and meet those goals. It's such a good feeling.
Mm.
And I think if the unspoken goal in our mind is to get everything taken care of, we'll never meet that goal and we'll always feel overwhelmed and we'll always be avoidant. And so I keep going back to, if you can't get something done, you've made the task too big. Keep making it smaller until it's a joke. Um, I'll share a story. I just moved out of a house that my husband and I had been living in for a long, long time, and downsizing at this stage in our life. And because I've spent so much time thinking about this, I mean, that is an overwhelming task, but I intentionally made it underwhelming by starting about a year ahead of time and giving myself permission that every day I'm going to do one drawer or one shelf. I mean, you don't have an infinite number of drawers in your house. You don't have an infinite number of shelves, and you've got 365 days. And so by doing that, I could clean out the junk drawer in the kitchen. That felt great. That took me 10 minutes. I'm done. To set meetable goals and then let yourself feel good about it, because I'm going to do the shelf in the coat closet tomorrow. And then that'll feel so much better that I've gotten rid of all those summer hats that nobody's worn for 10 years.
What are, do we have any questions or any responses to this in the chat to address before I move on?
Someone had a question about what is the Pomodoro method?
Oh, sorry, I said I didn't explain it. The Pomodoro method, I forgot who made it, but it is a productivity time system where you work for a period, you take a short break, work for a period, take a short break, you repeat it, and then you follow it up likely with some sort of physical activity. So as an example, if there's a paper that I need to write or a report, I will work for 25 minutes. And the important part is that during the 25 minutes, this is the only thing that you do. So there are no distractions allowed. So this is when you would put on the Forest app or OneSec or something else, put your phone in a different room, but 25 minutes of intense focus on the task. 5 minute break. So on this 5 minute break, I would caution you against picking up your phone. This is a 5-minute break where you could like maybe go outside, or if you're somewhere where you can open up a window, maybe just kind of sit back and reflect, walk around the room. Some kind of movement is usually helpful. It could be you go to like do a little bit of cleaning or organizing, something that's totally different than what you were doing before. You come back, another 25-minute work focus session, and then a 5-minute break. I think officially you do 3 or 4 of those cycles, and then you follow it up with about 30 minutes of activity. Because at that point, you would have worked for 90 to 120 minutes. And like you want to get out of the house or do something that kind of re-energizes your body. I find this is really helpful if I have like big blocks of time that maybe won't be interrupted. It's good to bring in this method to help me to get things done. And I also take these sort of breaks to clean up around the house. So I'm a big fan of Pomodoro.
Awesome. And then just to comment, the can't have anyone over syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
People have been saying that they intentionally invite people over as the motivator to
Yeah.
to clean. So
Yeah. I saw a joke on Instagram. It was like, do you want to help your ADHD friend? Call them and tell them that you're coming over in 45 minutes and don't answer the phone if they call you back. Because they're probably running around cleaning up to get ready. Oh, and about that method, there is something in the book, it's called the Mount Vernon method for cleaning, which involves kind of moving from room to room. I like to think of that emergency panic clean of like, oh my gosh, somebody is coming over. Like if you could retrace the things that you did, like there was probably a pretty effective method for getting things done quickly. And it's like, how could I replicate this as my like normal kind of cleaning method, but without the additional panic? So as an example, when you're like, oh, I have 15 minutes to clean, you look around, you pick the things that are the easiest to do, the things that are going to make the biggest difference or make it look clean. Kind of like in your bedroom, if you make the bed up, it can make the whole bedroom look a lot better. Like it helps you be an efficient cleaner. So any way that you can get someone to, or any way that you could bring in that sense of urgency is going to help you be a little bit sharper in that moment and focus on what's most important. So yeah, I love that idea of inviting people over.
awesome. I think we can move forward.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we recommended for Marge in the book was a routine for dishwashing. And I'll admit, when I first read this, I thought, I'm a grown man. I don't need a routine for my dishwasher. But you know what I realized? I'm often in this situation of having clean dishes in the dishwasher, like fully loaded with clean dishes that have been washed. And I'm ready to put dishes in to the dishwasher. And I'm like, oh, snap. I got to take these out. And I don't feel like doing that right now. But if I don't have anywhere to put these dishes, they're going to stay in the sink. And I have dishes from the dinner that I prepared that also need to be washed. And it kept frustrating me. So in the book, there is a system, and I made it a mnemonic because it's helpful for me to remember, called Reload, where if this happens to you, to in the morning, oh, and let me say this. This isn't for the person who wants to have all of their dishes always cleaned all the time. This is like functional, right? In the morning, I get up, I eat some cereal, I rinse out the dishes. I come home, I empty the dishwasher first before I start to make my dinner. After dinner is done, we load it, and then we turn on the dishwasher if there's enough dishes to run it. So that way I don't ever get into this. The hardest part of this cycle is to load it when I first get home. But what I recommend my clients do is to something like this. I would print this out, put this on the cabinet above the dishwasher so that when I'm standing in front of it, I'll know, Like now is the time for me to unload this so that I won't have that problem again of me coming to the dishwasher and it being full, and then me not deciding to do anything because I'm frustrated.
Well,
There's
and another
a,
thing I would say, Bruce, I remember working with a young woman who had an incredibly demanding job. She lived alone, and she said, "My place is just chaotic." And I spent several weeks on a small sailboat, and I realized how few things you actually need to get
Mm.
along in life because there was no room for, 8 dishes, 8 glasses. And I told her, you probably don't entertain very often at all with your busy life. And there's just you, yourself, and you. So I suggest you have 2 plates, 2 cups, 2 glasses, 2 forks. You can't make a big mess because you don't own a big mess, own enough
Ah,
objects to make it with, and to just cut down on what you're what you have out and available to you, because of course you're just going to rinse the plate off and dry it and use it again if it's sitting right there and you only have two.
yeah. What I like about that and the other suggestions in the book is like there's a focus on like functionality first and aesthetics second. Like the picture that I use for decluttering your home is like a picture out of like you would see if you went into like West Elm or Ethan Allen and you saw them put together a living room. But it's like if that's the goal, like if they sell the cutlery and the plates in sets of 4 or 8, right? Like if that's the goal, then you're like, well, how can I? That doesn't even work for me. And so this book helped me help me shift a lot of my thinking to like, well, like what actually works for Bruce? Like I can't take this off the shelf solution and apply it because it doesn't really work for me. And the like how it looks to other people or how other people might judge it or whether they like it or not is less important because I am the one whose life I'm trying to improve by making this more functional.
Absolutely. I worked with another woman who had an incredible, she managed a group home, and she had like a 12, at least, if not more, hour uh, a day
Mm.
job. And she could never manage her laundry. And we just cut it down to, I want you to get 2 great tall laundry baskets, and we're going to call one clean and we're going to call the other one dirty. And you never fold them, you never put them in the drawer. You just dig them out of the clean and you throw them in the dirty. And that worked just fine for her.
Hmm. Yeah, another tip I got for clothes from my personal coach, when I walked over my process with her, she was like, "You need more hooks. Like you stopping to fold stuff is like a pain in the butt." And so I found hooks that I could put on my door, like inside the closet, where things that I wear. I mean, I had this process of coming home. It was very Mr. Rogers, like when I followed it, like taking off the coat, zipping it up, putting it on the hanger, taking off the sweater, folding it. And like sometimes I did that, and sometimes I was like, "Oh, this stuff is going on the back of the couch." But when she taught me about the hooks, it's like, "Oh my gosh!" It like gets it up off the floor. I close the door, it's gone, and it's easy to access.
You got it.
Yeah, so um, one tip here, because this is about decluttering technically, if let's say the mood hits you and you are ready to do some decluttering and you're trying to figure out, is this something that I keep or do I know exactly where it goes? Something I came across is this 5-second rule where you make sure that every item has its space. And if it doesn't have a space, that could be a sign that it is not useful or that you don't need it or that you need to Marie Kondo it and like thank it for what it's done and then find a way to get rid of it. Yeah. Dr. Nadeau, have you seen Marie Kondo's Netflix special?
No, I haven't, although I certainly know all about her, but I haven't seen her Netflix special. Tell me.
Yeah, yeah. I watched it, and that was maybe the best advice I got out of the whole series. I mean, she has a I don't, I can't say that it's ADHD friendly, but something she recommended that you do if you have something that you like don't want to get rid of is the best thing you can do is to honor it by like recognizing the sounds kind of corny, but it works, like the good times that you had together and the memories that it helped you create, and to say like, this is it's time for me to move on from this, and I'm like holding some space for what this did, but it's time to move on. So it's a way of sometimes I feel like as ADHDers, we might have an impulsive clean where we're like, everything's getting thrown away. And rather than doing that, it's like, oh, I remember this and this was important to me because, but now it's time to give it a second home or a third home. And it can just make the process of detaching from it a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another way I think of that is make room for the you that you're becoming.
Hmm.
We don't want to do exactly the same thing every day for our entire life. We shift, and yet we have difficulty getting rid of the things that we used to do, but we don't do them any longer. And so, if you think of it as making room for the you that you're becoming, the interests that you want to develop, the books that you want to read, not hanging on to every book
Hmm.
that you've ever had in your house. I mean, my husband and I are big readers, and we had walls and walls of books. And after a while, it became very clear we mostly read digital books and that we just had very, very thick wallpaper. At which point I decided I'm going to give those books to somebody who hasn't read them.
I really like your focus on like improving your overall quality of life. And I try to bring that into my coaching because that what we started with, that example of like what the ADD life is like, there is there's just a lot of clutter, like mentally, like in your space. And it just feels hard. Like if everything just feels like such a struggle. And to frame it as like you're trying to build a life that you don't need to escape from, right? Like in what small ways can you make things more manageable, more doable, and more able to be maintained? And then you get to have a take more deep breaths of relaxation because you're not always like fighting against it. And that's kind of why this whole thing is important. It's not about the specific decluttering itself, but it's about being able to take a deep breath and relax and to say, oh, like that feeling of overwhelm or unmanageability has lessened or is decreasing over time. And then you get to enjoy your life, which is kind of all you got, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So I see we have 5 minutes left.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there's any burning question that we haven't responded to. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the tips that have come from everyone that's attending this talk. So, there's what I have learned over the years is I learned so much from my clients.
Yeah.
They've been working on their life and their brain for a long time too, and so I think there's an awful lot that I'm looking forward to seeing that's been offered by everyone in attendance.
Oh, and I think that's one of my favorite parts about these ADHD seminars, Bruce. Every time we've been getting great feedback from everyone. So I will be sharing all of this. I think that, we talked a little bit about homework, like everything that we talked about thus far, I feel like applies to all of those settings. So even though we didn't, necessarily get to those slides, we will share those with everyone. Is there anything that you want to mention that we might not have gotten to about like decluttering your mind? Or I know you talked about catch the wave was part of the book, so if you can speak to that.
Yeah, we talked.
Oh,
Oh,
no, go ahead,
oh,
Bruce.
Dr. Nadeau.
So catch the wave is just a phrase I use in the book that we've been talking about, ADD-friendly ways to organize your life. And by that, I mean, we have impulses, we have ideas that occur to us when we're not planning to have that idea occur to us. And I think of that as catching the wave. If there's something that occurs to me and I've got the energy to do it, even if it seems like a ridiculous time to be doing that. And it's so interesting. I'm married to a very linear thinker, and he'll say, "Why are you doing that now? Why don't you do that tomorrow?" And I say to him, "I don't want to put more things on my to-do list. I just thought of it now. I can do it in 5 minutes, never have to put it on my to-do list." And so I sometimes end up doing things at very odd times of day because that's when I catch the wave. That's when it occurred to me.
And I get a tip that goes along with that in the section on work. I have, you all might be familiar with, I forgot his name, David something. He's got the Getting Things Done system. And it is designed for a neurotypical brain, but something that I got from it was his do it, delete it, delegate it, defer it rule. And this was meant to be applied to email, but I feel like there's a lot of ways to apply it to your life. But the rule is if it takes 5 minutes or less to do it, if it's something that somebody else can do or that they can help you with, to delegate it. If it's something that you need to do, but you can't do right now, defer it. Defer it meaning like put it on your calendar and give it a specific date, you'll do it. Or if it's something that that you don't have to do, but like maybe you kind of like want to do or you're thinking about, delete it, right? If it's not a priority. And so I use that do it, delete it, delegate it, defer it in multiple ways in my life. I delegate out the task of house cleaning. I do the task of, I don't know, anything that I have to do. And maybe the biggest win has been deleting. So like the stuff that I was aspirational about or kind of, oh, it'd be really nice if I did this, or this sounds like a good idea for me to explore later, delete it. And it makes more space in my brain.
That's right. Makes more space in your house, in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we're talking in general about decluttering all aspects of our life and to catch ourselves
Mhm.
purchasing something, starting something, tasking ourselves with something when we don't have to add that.
Yeah. I think that was a great way to wrap this up. I love that. And everyone has given me lots of homework in the best way. I need to go through the chat and gather all of these resources. I will share all of this with you with the recording. Thank you for spending your extended lunch break with us. Stay in touch for our future Ask the Expert and adult ADHD seminars with Bruce. And thank you, Dr. Nadeau and Bruce, for taking the time today. This was really wonderful. I
Of
appreciate it.
course.
Our pleasure.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
See ya.